Hello friends, welcome back. Today we're going to write a counter with Redux. Now you learned all the core principles of Redux. You've seen how to create actions and action creators, create a Redux store, dispatch your actions against the store, and design state updates with pure reducers. You've even seen how to manage complex state with reducer composition and handle asynchronous actions. These examples are simplistic, but these concepts are the core principles of Redux. If you understand them well, you're ready to start building your own Redux app. The next challenge covers some of the details regarding state immutability. But first, here's a review of everything you've learned so far. Okay. In this lesson, you'll implement the simple counter with Redux from scratch. The basics are provided in the core code editor. So here we have a bunch of variables set to null. But you'll have to fill in the details. Use the names that are provided and define inc action and dec action creators. The counter reducer, increment and decrement, action types, and finally Redux store. Once you're finished, you should be able to dispatch increment and decrement actions to the increment or decrement the state held in the store. Good luck building your first Redux app. Let's run the test just to start off with. Okay, everything fails. The action creator, okay, I'm wondering if this is the best way to go through it. The action creator, increment action, this guy, should return an action object with type equal to the value of increment. Define an action creator for incrementing. Okay, should return an action object. So we're going to have an object with the type, which is equal to increment, and a value equal to the value of increment, with a type equal to the value of increment. All right, well, let's see. What happens if we run that? Doesn't pass the test. Increment action. Should return an action object with a type equal to the value of increment. The decrement action should return an action object with the type equal to the value of decrement. So this one is going to be very similar to this guy, except for we're going to say decrement. And I think maybe we go like this with these guys. We want to make this into a function, right? Let's run the test and see if that one passes. Okay, I'm just going to keep going at it just like that. The Redux store should initialize with a state of 0. The store. So we want to have redux.store, and we want to increment. We want to start with a state equal to 0, and then we're going to pass in an action. Okay, so I don't remember how to do this, so I'm just going to open up the Learn tab, and I'm going to go back down to where we did say use middleware to store these things. And I'm going to come down here, check out the store. Okay, this is how you create a store. Okay, yeah. Redux.create store. Create store. And then we want to pass in a reducer. And then our reducer is going to be counter reducer. And then we're not going to do middleware for this one, so we don't need to do that. And we actually don't need to pass in a function. We're just going to call Redux create store with the counter reducer. So let's see if this passes any of the tests. Okay, we're not passing any of the tests, but at least we're making a little bit of progress. Let's see. There's these actions, and then we have our reducer. What does a reducer look like again? Come over here. Request data, handle async. This is our reducer. Default state, async reducer. Yeah, async reducer. Here's our reducer. So we want to have a state and an action in the reducer. Well, we're going to make this a function, a state, and action. And then we're going to have a default state. I don't know. I'm just going to set it to 0 right now. And then we're going to want to have a switch statement in here. in which we go action.type. And then we're going to do case. Case in which it's, in the case of it being increment, we're going to return something. And case of it decrement, we're going to return something. And then default, we're going to return state. Return state, default, return state, default, return state. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's see, we've got that. And what are we going to return? If it's decrement, will be with increment, we can call this increment. Define a constant of increment action. With this one, decrement, we're going to call it decrement. Unexpected token. 5, 9, action, ACTION, dot, type. Switch, action, dot, type. Oh, okay, so they're saying we need to put this in parentheses. Switch. Oh, and the switch needs to have brackets, and so all of this needs to be within the brackets. Case requesting data. Default. Switch action type. Case requesting data. Function. Well, it doesn't seem to like us using this old one. Maybe I'll refactor later. Let's just bring it up to the ES6. Action.type. Action.type. This doesn't need to be here. Okay, so now we're actually going through and it's working a little bit. Let's run the test and see what happens. The Redux store should initialize with a state of 0. Okay, cool. So we're getting the counter reducer, and our state is default to 0. So we're getting our first test passing. Let's look at the first one. The action creator inc action should return an action object, increment option. Let's check out the actions on this side. Default state, request data. Okay. We should have this be equal to a function, right? Increment data. This is request data, return data type. So we want to return type.increment. Let's run the test and see if the increment one passes. Nice, that one passed. Okay, so we basically just want to copy this and then just switch this out for decrement. And now if we run the tests, this will pass. And dispatching increment action on the Redux store should increment the state by 1. So if we do increment, we should go state is equal to, wait, where are we incrementing the state? And we want to make a comma here because we're working with an object, state dot plus 1. And so now let's see if this test passed. It's the fourth one down. Run the tests. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it didn't work. It broke something. Oh, no. We don't want to do that here. We just want to say return state is equal to state plus 1. And now let's run the test, see if that fourth one down. 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't work. I'm going to do this to the decrement as well because I think it's really close. State minus 1. Run the tests. Maybe instead of returning an object, we just do this. I think I made this mistake last time. Run the tests. Did the decrement one? Should decrement the state. Let's see here. If I run it like this, what happens? Oh, that was it. Okay, cool. So, yeah, let's just go over this. Basically, I mean, I don't know if they want you to look at the other one, but a lot of the times when I'm writing programs, like even when I'm doing paid work, I'll go to an existing thing and write off of that. It's better to do that than just try to come up with something off your own until you memorize this stuff and work with it a lot. Once you work with it a lot, like when you watch me doing bootstrap stuff, I can do bootstrap stuff just by memory because I've done it so much. But when I haven't done this a lot, I haven't done much Redux before. I've done this exercise before, but I haven't done this much. So I'm just like learning with you guys actually right now. One thing I would do is like, you can refactor these guys to be like this, right? This is just ES6. And I remember when I was learning, this was really tricky for me because this works exactly the same way as that other one. You could say, I think you can go function like this as well. And this would actually pass the test as well. So this is all the same stuff. It's just writing it in a different way. Yeah, this one, it could be function. But I think you want to make it const when you're doing Redux. So you don't want to actually change these things. It's better to have it like this and learn it this way. But I'm just making a point of doing it this way so that you guys can see that that's what this means in terms of just the raw JavaScript of it. So yeah, let's do this one more time. So we create a constant of increment and we set it equal to the string of increment, a constant of decrement and set it to the string of decrement. And then we create a reducer, which is basically a function that allows us to pass objects to, and then it kind of cleans them up. It says if the type is equal to increment, then we just adjust the state. And that makes it so you can't really change the function with random strange data. If the type isn't increment and it's not decrement, then we just return the original state of the counter. And then so here we have an increment action. This is an action function, and we call it increment action. All this does is return an object with the type of increment. And then we have the same thing with decrement. All it does is return an object with the type of decrement. And then when we create a Redux store, the counter reducer is right here. Here's the counter reducer, and this is what we pass into the object. And then I'm guessing that somewhere down the line for the tests, it's calling the actions here. So it's passing in. It's got the existing state which starts at 0, and then they're running a increment and a decrement action on it. So they're passing in counter reducer, the existing state, and then the action, which is one of these guys, to run the tests on the code. Let's see if we could do that. If we go into store.getState, and then we needed to console the store.getState. Okay, cool. And then if we went store. What would you do? Was it something like an action, right? Store.send action data through. Dispatch. Store.dispatch. And then dispatch will take in, like, say, the increment action. And we just pass in the function there. And then we console.log store.getState. Then, okay, cool. So now we've incremented once. Now say we were to increment again and again. So now we've got 1, 2, 3. We would expect the store.getState to be 3. And then, okay, so we've decremented. We've increment actioned 3 times. And now let's dec action twice. 1, 2. And then if we console log get state, again, now we should get 3 minus 2 is 1, right? So that's what's going on. And so this is just, we're creating a function that allows us to change state based on just these actions. And this allows us to maintain stateful, it allows us to use a lot of different data and pass it into this, the reducer and the Redux store in a way that makes it so we don't get wild data things. So it's hard to understand exactly why this is super useful right now, but just kind of keep in mind that this does become useful in the future. Let's see if I bet you this broke a lot of the tests. Yeah, passing all this stuff in here broke all the tests because we're actually changing the state, and the program actually requests that we don't do that because it probably depends on the tests to have the state set to 0. So I just deleted all those things and I submitted. And yeah, that's it. This is the solution that I came up with. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next lesson.